In this lesson we will begin the exploring of other MoGraph generators. So first guy we'll take a look at is this matrix guy. So let's create it. And this matrix guy is almost completely identical to the cloner, but it doesn't create clones, it creates matrices. And really, to simplify what a matrix is simply a position, scaling and rotation information for placing your object. So you can see each of these little guys here, these little boxes, is actually a matrix. So it's basically a placeholder for something else. So if you take a closer look here, you can find all these parameters. So if you change this to, let's say, linear, you can find all the same parameters as for the cloner object. You also have the transform tab, you have the effectors, so almost completely the same. The main difference is in what this matrix object generates. So it can generate matrices, or in a much more complex situation, it can generate thinking particles, and you will notice that bunch of things change once you change this generate to thinking particles. So we will stick to this matrices only for now, and I want to explain what it can do on simple example. One good way to explain this matrix guy is actually to show you a certain limitation to a cloner. Well, in fact, it's not a limitation, but sometimes it can be an undesired result. In previous lessons, we used effectors to deform objects, and I will just disable this matrix object for a second, and you can see we are left with these three guys, which are in fact particles. So if we press play, we will refresh the scene and they will be gone. Now, just as we used effectors to deform objects, we can use these deformers here to deform our clone constellations or constellations made by other generators here under this MoGraph menu. So let's create a cloner, and we will create an object so I can show you the problem which you will most certainly run into. So let's, for example, select this to be in a radial mode, 10 clones, maybe 100 centimeters like this. So this will be good enough. And let's also create a material so we can bring some life to these guys. So maybe this orangey color like this, and we will apply it to our clone. So now, if you want to use deformer on a complete clone constellation, then first thing you have to do, you have to group the cloner. So now, any deformer you put below that null object in the group will have an effect in everything that is inside that group. So let's give it a try and maybe select this twist deformer, and let's put it here under our null object. So twist deformer and the cloner are on the same hierarchical level. Now you can play with this angle setting here in the twist deformer, and I think you are clearly seeing the problem. Look how those clones are distorted, and certainly that can be an effect that you want, but what if you don't want the clones to be distorted? Well, in that case, you should help yourself with this matrix guy. Now let's zero this out, and first thing you have to do is to match the settings that you have in the cloner object with settings here in the matrix object. So we would set this to radial, count of 10, and radius of 100. Now if I enable the matrix object, you can see those guys are exactly on the same place as these torus clones. Now I will use this matrix as an object to which I will clone the toruses. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So I will change this mode to object, and I will clone them on the matrix object. So we'll drop the matrix object here. Each of these little guys will assume one of the clones, so it will give it a position, scaling and rotation value. Now, if I will play with my twist deformer, you will see that clones still get distorted, but you can actually see that we are deforming the clones with this twist deformer. We are not deforming the matrix object. So let's put it to 0 and move this twist guy as a child of the matrix. So now this is the result that I was after. So just to clarify, the cloner is creating a clone, but this matrix guy really determines the amount and everything else regarding that clone. And of course, you can mix deformers with effectors. So let's, for example, load maybe formula effector to matrix, and I'll show you a slight issue that we will probably encounter. So let's hit play, and this looks really neat. Maybe I will enable the position also, so you have some sort of a crazy behavior. I will get rid of this twist guy, so some things will be much more clearer. Let me stop this, go back, and this is the issue I was referring to. Things don't really correspond to each other. You can see that these positions of the matrix are not really creating these toruses as we would expect, and that is actually a priority issue. So if I press play, stop, go back, we will have that once again. I believe many of you that watched volume 3 or project 2 understand that this matrix guy should be executed first. So I will drag it on the top of the object manager, because things are evaluated in object manager from top to bottom. So now this cloner and the effector will know where those matrices are. So now if I press play, stop, go back, I will get rid of the problem. So this is very important. Priorities also play a major role in MoGraph. That being said, I think we can proceed to our next generator, which is this fracture object. And I just want to mention that these little guys, these matrices, they don't render. So they are just a visual helper how things will be distributed in the viewport. Now let's get rid of all these guys, and I will load a fracture object, and this guy has three most noticeable functions. First one is it views every child as a cloner, so you can apply effectors. Second one is that it can sort of connect and disconnect objects. And the third one is it can be used as an object creation helper. So really, to show you how this guy works, I'll first create a cloner so we have something to compare it to. So let's create a cloner, and for this purpose I will create a text spline and right here cloner, and just scale this down to 100 so it fits in the viewport nicely. Also, I'll drop this under extrude NURBS, and let's apply that material just to bring some life into this text. Now, if I drop this under cloner, you can see that I can actually clone anything that is under the cloner. Set this to just a single clone. And there is a very good reason why I am using text object, which is a generator by itself, under the extrude NURBS, which is a generator also. So you will see some sort of limitations, relatively speaking, in terms of cloner. So let's now drop a random effector to our cloner. So we would expect our letters to jump, and we'll actually use one of these temporal nodes and press play, and everything will look completely fine. But what if you want to constrain this behavior with fall off? Let's select spherical, and you will see nothing happens. It doesn't obey this fall off shape. Why is that? And the answer is simple. It doesn't understand that letters can be separate object. Cloner considers this complete setup as a single guys, so it really cannot affect letters separately. It doesn't matter if you enable, let's say, point deformation here, because these guys, these letters are not made of points. These letters are parametric generated object in Cinema 4D. To surpass this limitation, we'll actually get rid of this cloner guy and put this deformer to off in the random effector. So now, what if I drop this guy under my fracture object and let's delete this random effector and we will start over. So now we have a extruded text spline under the fracture object. Nothing spectacular will happen. In fact, nothing will happen. In fact, nothing will happen at all. So to effectively see what these modes do, we'll load the effector. So let's load the random effector. We already loaded exactly the same one for the cloner. So in this case, and I will just for the sake of clarification rename this fracture, so it's much more easier to understand and distinguish between the two. Now, if I press play, and in my random effector, I will enable one of these temporal guys, so let's say noise, and you will see this guy is moving, but currently in this mode, it simply affects the complete parametric generated spline. If you change this to, let's say, explode segments, you will see that these guys will behave differently. And in fact, the caps and the parts of that spline are exploded, so to speak. That is why you have this explode segments and connect. It will simply connect what is exploded, but the letters will be separate. Now, do note that even fall-offs work, so it's specifically designed for such situations where you have parametric generator under the cloner, and by this you can really surpass this limitation. So effectively now we have a way to affect only parts of this object. I hope this all makes sense. Now let me get rid of this random effector, and if you hit C button or hit this little guy here on your fracture object, watch what happens. It will create a polygon object for every single of these guys. If I undo all this, and it will do so according to what is set here. So for example, if you set this to explode segments and hit C, you will get different results, meaning that you will also get these caps. I hope this explains things around this fracture object. And it is really powerful and has many usages aside to what we've shown here. What I want to show you also is you can create selections. By that I mean MoGraph selection. So you can really interactively select the clone. So let me show you that. So if I go here under MoGraph and hit this MoGraph selection, I will get these little guys here, and they really correspond to these modes here. So if I'm in straight mode, I will just get this single guy. So only the complete guy can be selected. If this explode segments is set, I can select both the main part of the letter and both caps. And in this explode segments and connect, I can select just the individual letter. So let's maybe select A, and by holding Shift, we select another one, maybe E, and let's select U also. Now, once the selection is made, you can see it here that you got a new tag on the fracture object, and these selections work on every single guy inside the MoGraph menu. So it works with the cloner and everything else. What is important? Once you, for example, load an effector, let's go with the random effector, and we will set here the noise so it works with time, and you will see now automatically, if you have the generator selected, then it will drop the selection inside the selection slot now. This is the result where you manually maybe created the selection, and if the effector didn't receive that selection tag, you simply drag it here and constrain the effect only to this letter. So another really powerful way to affect your clone constellations. It is really flexible, it is really powerful, and everything works in conjunction. And that's about it for matrix and fracture. We will now take a look at inheritance and volume effector in our next lesson.